We always need to raise our kids to live in the world that they're going to live in.
The world around us is changing very rapidly.
Choices sometimes are difficult.
North Shore District 112 is at a critical juncture. Its aging schools are in need of extensive repairs, and it faces significant financial challenges.
We are at a critical juncture. The district has an opportunity to decide what to do with those circumstances now.
There are things that are needed, and they are not luxuries.
I think that education defines a community.
We are at a point where we have to plan ahead.
Doing nothing is not an option.
Last year, the Superintendent Citizen Finance and Facility Advisory Committee was formed to study these issues and help craft a vision for the future.
I've been a resident of Highland Park since 1968. I've watched the whole community kind of grow up.
I loved growing up in Highland Park.
My wife and I really wanted to live in Highland Park ever since we drove through it the first time.
We wanted to find a place that was child-centric and that had good public school systems.
Education is very important here.
We looked around and we finally came back to Highland Park.
We want to be the best in education. I think that's always been a source of pride for us.
And I think in order for a community to thrive, you need to have a first-rate education system.
That's why they're here.
When I found out about this committee being put together, it sounded like it would be a great way for me to be involved.
Committee members included a cross-section of parents, community members, and staff from across the district.
I help companies with strategic planning issues, and I want to offer up some of those same methods to help the local community.
We had many different people come in and speak to us. There are a bunch of different factors. We distilled those into a list.
I can sum up the findings probably in just one quote. Houston, we have a problem.
One key problem is buildings that are not designed for today's world.
I think some of the aha moments were just how bad some of the schools really look when you get down inside.
You think about some of the buildings in our district, and they were built before we could even conceptualize a school bus. We're still educating our kids in those buildings.
The average age of the schools, with the exception of Oak Terrace, is 74 years old.
Are they ADA compliant? No. Are they easy to equip technologically? No.
I don't think it's fair that we ask our students to have to sit in excruciating heat to try and learn. We wouldn't ask the same of any of us as adults.
They're old and they're getting more expensive.
Our district has an operating budget or revenue line of about $70 million. That revenue line is really limited in terms of its increases by the amount of CPI on year to year. It's a state law. So you can think of that revenue line being fairly flat off into the future. On the other hand, when you look at the expenses and you add up salaries, benefits, power, transportation, materials, all of that, it adds up to about $67 or $68 million a year. So you're really left with about $2 or $3 million to have all the capital inputs.
The committee found that operating 12 facilities is not financially efficient for the number of students in the district.
12 buildings really makes no sense.
You will spend a whole lot of capital to then have 12 buildings that have been given a facelift, and then we won't have any money to fund operations. We'll be in the same situation in a couple years from now.
From all the data we've looked at, all we do is bring pressure on the finances of the district.
We won't be able to afford new technologies. We won't be able to afford new initiatives in education.
One of the things that we learned were some of the exciting things happening in 21st century learning.
They're working very collaboratively, and our spaces don't allow for that.
We learn differently today, we teach differently today than we did back when these buildings were built.
Part of the challenge right now with our current 12 schools is that some schools have 13 kids in a class and other schools have maybe 25.
The committee found that having fewer schools with more sections at each grade level would even out class sizes and allow teachers to more effectively differentiate instruction.
Differentiation for each child is the most important thing in education. And if you've only got, for instance, 2 teachers in each grade, that limits your ability to do that sort of differentiation.
When I went to school, it was all about the class learning at the same pace. Well, now students learn different ways, different paces, so it's much more individualized.
The committee found that buildings must have the infrastructure necessary to support today's technology.
Every student comes in with an iPad or some kind of piece of technology, it seems. These buildings, from a system standpoint, heating, cooling, electrical, aren't designed to support that kind of load.
This district cannot move along financially, technologically, educationally if we don't make some changes.
We're at a tipping point.
It's not a sustainable model.
The district's at a choice point.
Now is the time for that reinvestment.
You have a choice between really great education or pouring money into your infrastructure.
I think the district and the community has everything to gain by addressing these issues.
This is a very solvable problem.
One of the things that we've insisted on is that whatever we do to the buildings, that it's good for a period of 30 to 50 years. Okay, which means if we're here today, just think of how much has changed in the last 30 to 50 years educationally and in our lives.
We'll be able to have operational efficiencies that we can then reinvest in the education itself.
The students are the main focus.
That's the lifeblood of this community.
The things that school provides is really the bedrock.
It's the teachers that are teaching them, the staff that is friendly, the other kids. No matter what building that your child attends, they are going to get a quality education.
A community will survive.
There's a great way to balance the culture that we have in Highland Park with the educational requirements that we see forthcoming.
If you look at the mission of our district, we want a world-class education, and I think everybody wants that for their children. It's one thing to put it in a mission, it's another thing to actually make it happen.